favor and just give me a quick sound check?
Mic check. Mic check.
See if I can bring it closer to the mic. Bring it closer. Okay, anytime?
Mic check. Mic check.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Just from time to time, I may glance at the camera just to check the settings and just make sure it's still recording properly, and just check the level. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, and this is more important. I just want to make sure that we are getting.
Oh no.
Okay. All
I totally get it.
right. All right. So I appreciate you again. I know tried to do this last week. I appreciate you just sticking with it. I know because we had tried to do it the week before the week
Right.
before the hurricane,
Right.
and then last week, and then I appreciate you just sticking with it and really just coming through with the interview as well. So just a little bit about the project. So I'm a teacher. I was teaching in the school, summer school, like the summer program, like last year when you had Philando Castile got shot. I think maybe a week or maybe a few days before him. I think that was Eric Sterling. I think he got choked, and then it seemed like it was like the secession and stuff. And I remember going to school maybe the weekend after the 4th of July, and we have largely African American or at least black population, I'll say, and I saw just targets on my students. They were doing whatever they were doing, building robots and running around, kind of joking or whatever. It's in summer, but I saw targets on them. They were literally just running around, just I almost waiting to be shot, kind of. And I was like, man, we have to do something about this. I don't know exactly what we can do. So part of that, part of the project came from just that wanting to see something and do something for young black men to alleviate the stereotype of them being super predators, super strong, super aggressive, and to be feared. And hopefully a part of that will these messages or these images rather of successful black men who still have outreach and a heart for the community will hopefully begin to change the narrative of black men as something to be feared in society as well. So again, just appreciate you being a part of it.
I appreciate it.
If you can, so just kind of pre-roll, can you just tell me who you are, what you do, just a little bit of background about your story?
Well, my name is Mikelange Olbel. People call me Mike for short. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. My parents are originally from Haiti. It was a journey. It was a journey. I can recall my father, who's no longer here with us, but I remember when, as far as I can remember, I remember us living in a van. Parents migrating here, and they had some rough patches, and as they had more kids, we was living in the van, and one of the things was about it is that we would have to go to the neighbor house and get a bucket of water and shower. And those times, right, as a kid, you're like, why do we have to live like this? And but as life would have it, my father continued to progress. He took advantage of what is known as the American dream. Started working one job, then got a second job. It was interesting because it's not like those jobs was paying him a whole lot of money, but it was significant enough that you can see the progression happen in our life, where we went from the van to living in a 1 bedroom, 1 bath to living, and there's just 7 people, right? So there's 2 parents and their 5 of their kids, and this is how they living. And so I can take them from 2 bedroom, 1 bath to a 4 bedroom, 3 bath. But in that whole process, my parents were so focused on creating a living like environment for us. There was some things that were lost in there, right? We know our parents still loved us. We know our parents very much cared about us. But one of the things that will happen is that in the pursuit of happiness, we found that some of my brothers starting to fall to the streets. We didn't have much, and by the time that my father can get a hold of everything that was going on, it almost seemed like it was too late. And so I remember, I'll never forget this day. My oldest brother had just been sentenced to 35 years in prison, and some of my other brothers was in and out of jail. And by the grace of God, not to say I'm any better than them, but that I didn't take the same steps. I didn't fall into the drug war. I didn't fall into the gang banging. But most importantly, I struggled in school, right? As much as I struggled in school, I just knew school would be my outlet. Because there I knew I was getting a 3-course meal. There I know, well, not a 3-course meal, but I was getting breakfast and lunch. There I knew that, I could have fun time. I didn't have to worry about the gunshots that I would experience at night. I didn't have to worry about seeing drug dealers on the corners, offering us to carry book bags on the way home for X amount of dollars because they knew we had nothing. But it was this progression, right? One thing I knew that my father worked very hard. And as crazy as it may sound, which was not really crazy, my father never told us, "I love you." But he will always say, "I show you I love you because I put clothes on your back, shoes on your feet, food on the table, and a roof over your head, and somewhere for you to lay your head at night." Like, some people don't have that. Whereas in his upbringing, that's the way it was. But as society continues to evolve and change, you want to hear those words as a young son. So there was this void in all of us. And I remember being 13. And this was after my brother had just got sentenced. My father said, you're never going to be anything. You're going to end up just like your brothers. And as a kid, that threw me for a loop. I was hurt. I was devastated. I was so devastated that I cried that whole night because I was like, how could someone who we believe that loved us can say such thing? And my mom, who's a darling, she's there. She was literally working and selling food out of the car just to continue to help my father make ends meet. And during that process, during that time, here I am as a young kid dealing with this experience, dealing with this thing called life, and dealing with what I thought at the time was tragedy, to have a father tell his youngest son, "You're not going to be anything." Well, that shook me to the core. And I remember, I'll never forget the day because I had some blue gym short pants on, some flip-flops, a wife beater, and my father was on the ladder, and I was helping him paint the house, right? And I like, "Dad, I promise that I won't fail. I won't let you down." So people always were like, "What's your drive?" But I never shared what had been my drive. Like, what was the promise that son made to his father? But I realized later, actually, when I got in my freshman year in high school, I had like a 1.5 GPA. And part of that 1.5 GPA, I was a 3-sports athlete. I didn't care much about anything. It was almost as if I was living up to what my father was saying. And as I left high school, I finished with a 3.5. and $100,000 in scholarship. It was mind blowing. But even then, my father wasn't pleased by that. He was like, "Okay, you got your high school diploma, right? So
if we could, can we just take it right back from that part?
Okay.
You're about to leave high school with $100,000.
Right. So, yes, ma'am. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Sorry about that. That's okay.
Shower plug.
Can we?
Yeah.
Can I do one more thing too?
Yes.
The paper on the wall in the back.
These?
Can I take those down just now?
Let's go. Let me unplug this thing here.
Let me make sure I'm focused. And I am. It's good.
You want to try to lower their voice out there?
It's okay. I think for the most part they've been good. They were pretty alright.
I was on the road too, man.
I know, man. That's what happened. Like I said, I know you have a good story. And
Let me just say this to them real quick.
okay. And you're really just kind of going through my list of questions and everything.
Hello?
Hey, Miss Boyd, can you ask them not to be shouting out there, please?
Oh, I'll tell Miss Kim.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
You are most welcome.
All right. All right, ready?
Yeah.
So I'll start with $100,000 scholarship.
Yeah, you can take it if you can. Just take it back to the high school 1.5.
Okay. So so I went into high school, fall into bad behavior. I wasn't caring much unless it was sports season. Had a 1.5 GPA, and it took someone to say, well, let me back up because this was interesting even before I got to high school. There was a gentleman by the name of Oscar Harris, which is so funny because he called me today. I remember me being in a position. He put me in this leadership position for up and coming young men. And he was like, Olbel, he used to call me by my last name. He said, Olbel, you're going to have to be different. All your brothers done messed up. They all want to throw their life away. You're going to have to be different. And that's true. There's nothing false in that. And like, I'm going to send you home 10 days suspension if you don't do right. And we used to always laugh about him. But he really cared about us, right? He taught us, like, if you ever late to work, you can't follow direction, and you can't be consistent, it's going to be hard for you to be successful in life. And so those words just stick in the back of my head. And for me, it was more so, well, how do I bring all this together? So he was like, you're leaving. You're going to go off to high school. What you going to do then, Olbel? And so I'll never forget it. And I was like, I'm going to be somebody. And like, well, show me, don't tell me. Everybody can talk. show me. So it was it was so surreal with him, but we knew that he cared. But when I went off my freshman year in high school, I lost focus. Somewhere in that summer, I lost focus. I actually nearly lost my life. At the age of, during that transition from middle school to high school, I went to a gang cookout with my brother. And here it is, I'm at a gang cookout. I'm there to eat food and play basketball. And it's crazy, like some Caribbean mothers, your mom tell you she had a bad dream, don't go out, right? But the reality of it was, I was like, well, I'm just going to play basketball and eat and have a good time. And it didn't click for me. When I got there, I'm hanging out on a basketball court and a fight break out between two different nationalities. And it was crazy because the fight happened so fast. Before we knew it, guns were being drawn. And I took off running because I'm like, look, I don't want to die. And this is this huge heavyset guy, no shirt on, jeans on, white tennis shoes, I'll never forget it, pulls out his shotgun and starts chasing me because he believed I was part of the pack. And he chased me all the way around this complex. And I literally fell to my knees begging for my life, telling him, don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. And this lady jumped to the window sill, said, please don't kill my son. Now this lady I was not her son. I didn't know her for Adam, but I believe she was fearful of seeing another young black man being gunned down in her neighborhood. And she knew I wasn't from the neighborhood. And the man said, well, this is your son. Well, why are you not out here? She said, please just don't kill my son. And out of the corner of my eyes, even in the heat of the moment, I'm watching my brother, who's across the street fighting, who eventually stopped fighting and saw this gun being drawn on me, and he froze. He froze, and I was like, I'm thinking he's gonna come and help me, but he froze. But then, that whole time I'm begging for my life, and I'm telling this guy, look, I'm just a kid. I don't have anything to do with this. I'm just a kid. Now, in hindsight, someone can say, oh, you should have never did that. You should have just, handle your... Nah, I handle my business and get shot. What I'm going to be handling then? Because sometimes I feel like we get so caught up in trying to be hard. It's not about being hard. It's about surviving. And I think there's a false notion out there that we have to put on this image of having to be hard. But what does hard look like when you're doing 35 years old, when you're 6 feet under? Who knows you're hard? Well, he was hard enough that he died. And what else can be said about your story? Right? So I live by what is your legacy will be. So all this happened, and by it was done, I'm still here today. And, I just thought to myself that I'm here. I'm like, he didn't kill me. He don't never let me see you back in this neighborhood. And here's the funny thing. I haven't been back in that neighborhood since then. And when I got off the ground, ran into this lady's house, I said, thank you for saving my life. Because ain't no telling what would have happened if she would have never jumped to that window and said, don't kill my son. So it was there was some real life situation happening. It was there. And I believe that started the change. But somehow when I got my freshman year in high school, I lost focus of that change. I had a 1.5. I wasn't focusing. But yet in the back of my head was still what my father said, that you're not going to be anything. And so when I finished off with a 3.5, Magnum cum laude, went off to college with $100,000 in scholarship. First to ever go off to college and graduate. I graduated Magnum cum laude as well. Then I went off and got my master's. And it was great. What was interesting about my undergrad experience, that's where I met my wife. And still today we've been rolling hard. Like any relationship, you have your ups and downs, but it's about what you stick through and what you're able to get through. So that was a beautiful thing about it. I played college football. I was a leading minority scholar, just scholar all around. But like making a president list, getting an internship of the year, So I was always looking ways to excel. When I got my bachelor's degree, my father came, he took one picture, I was like, okay, it's time to go. And my mom, she's like jumping for joy. And my father was not pleased with me getting a bachelor's degree. He was like, yeah, so what? Like, what's next? And so I always say my bachelor's was from my mom, my master's got to be from my dad. So when I went off and got my master's degree, I already had it in my dreams to go off and get it. But it was that motivation that made me get it. My pops was, if this is what you're going to do, if you think you can get a master's degree, well, show me. Show me. And when I got it, I could hear my father from the top of the balcony saying, yes, that's my son, Mikelange, right, with his big Caribbean Haitian accent. But man, I tell you, that was the best night of my life. Because it was in that moment I knew that I had reached a level where my father had just started to get pleased with. And that became my first step towards success. Because I wasn't pleased with my bachelor's degree. I was like, well, everybody got a bachelor's degree. I was, even to this day, I always felt like I should have just went and just got my PhD and got it over with. Because now, trying to go back now, it's just like, it's so hard because life happens. So I got my master's, and my father, a year, maybe like 2 years from that time, said, I love you, to me. Out of all his sons, I was the first he ever said, I love you too. But it drove me. It drove me. It made me realize that there was so much more that was going on in life that I have to offer. It made me realize that my journey wasn't just about me, but it's about the kids that I could possibly save by telling them my story and telling them what I had to go through and looking into their eyes and say, look, you can do this too. But yeah, you can even do it better, right? So we go from doing all this to, I later realized my father was just like, you know what I told you back then, that you wasn't going to be anybody? Because I spent most of my time telling your brothers they need to learn how to be somebody. I realized I had to do something different with you. So all along, he was doing this reverse psychology with me, that things were never good enough for him early on, because he didn't want me to fall to a place of comfort. And so what it did, though, is created a monster in me that that sometimes I have a problem appreciating when I do have some success, because I'm always thinking about, okay, that's done, let's move on to the next, right? So I start this business called Team Saving Our Youth that I founded, focused on nurturing kids and really elevating kids, keeping kids out of prison. We do everything from intervention to prevention to substance abuse awareness and education, to early childhood education and prevention, in terms of literacy, in terms of crime. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, we have poured over hundreds of thousands, over $100,000, really. I think year to date, we have reached $2.3 million. Right? And this is something that one day I quit my job. And there was the owner of that job I was working at told me I was going to be successful. And he was a gentleman who looked just like me, spoke my language, and I was just shocked by it. I wasn't going to allow it to make it. This is, hey Kim.
Where are you at?
I'm in the office.
Well, I'm walking around the building and I don't see any sign that says Team Soy.
You see my car out there?
What car are you in?
The red Camry. All right, let me come out and get you real quick.
Are you